First question I have for you is one simple question. How have you changed since we first chatted and started the academy?
Oh, well, there's two facets to that. I know I'm a little bit more comfortable with the idea of being accountable to a longer term system. I've always been a little bit nervous about that because in the past, a long term project was mostly school. You're
Mhm.
right. You hold on long enough and you get to the end, and that's kind of it. Or you play the game long enough to make the instructors happy.
Mm.
And with anything you want to do for yourself, it's a bigger project of a lot of little things that you consistently do, which is not the same thing as school, where you have to demonstrate these little things or make enough of a flair to show people that you're learning or that you're holding on to what they're trying to let you know, or showcase whatever new skill that you're supposed to have learned, or the 30-second memorization is working very well.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess for my part, getting a little bit more comfortable with the idea that it's okay to not make a big deal out of each little success, that you can make it part of your normal life, and that in and of itself is its own victory. And that's been a nice little comfortable part to it. And also
Wow.
the overall consistency means more than, oh, I hit my next streak, I guess for me is another aspect of that that means a lot. My water intake has improved significantly. It's definitely more of a habit than anything else. Continuing to swap out undesirable, not helpful drinks for better things.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had soda in a very long time. It tastes funny now. I've become a little
Yes.
bit of a tea snob as a result, but
Awesome.
and also I've been leaning into like Liquid Death a little bit more. This is one of their
Hell yeah.
teas, which has like a grand total of 7 grams of sugar per the entire can. So
Game changer.
definitely better than the pretend sugar of aspartame, which never tastes right, and or other real sodas that have like 46 some grams per can, and you're
Crazy.
still thirsty. So,
Yep.
a lot of good progress for that.
Mm-hmm.
Being comfortable with the overall consistency, it's like, and not beating yourself up about missing a day because stuff happened, life happens.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's the overall consistency that helps more in the long run, and getting comfortable with that and letting that be the victory. It's like, great, well, out of 7 days, most of those days I was on target for this or this. Awesome. I can do that again, or I could do better tomorrow. And
There you
here's how
go.
I'm going to do that. And
You got
also
this.
planning to make tomorrow as idiot proof as possible has been one of the strategies I've learned, um, kind of as I've adapted to things, if that makes sense.
100%. I like how you mentioned like idiot proof. Um, Simply because it's like that preparation for tomorrow is one of those things. It's one of those things that it's a quote by Sun Tzu that I always reference is the battle is won before it's ever fought.
Hmm.
And that's one aspect it seems like that you were fully leveraging throughout your experience in the academy, which has served you well instead of kind of going into battle, so to speak, without any armor or weapons or strategy, right?
No, yeah, I like to think so. It works as like a work strategy for me also. Just because I can't get to a certain activity or a certain thing that needs my attention doesn't mean tomorrow it can't. Or if I'm at capacity for a day, it's okay to tell yourself, okay, well, here's what I'm going to do to make sure it does happen tomorrow. Put it
Mm-hmm.
on your list for tomorrow. Or, I mean, in the case of me, it's like you can take water, for example.
Mm-hmm.
There are some days where I've been out and about a little bit too much and I didn't have anything in my car because I drank my last bottle or can or whatever I happened to have, and just doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, here's what I can do to make up for that tomorrow. I will fill up a water bottle, have it in my fridge. I can just take it and go with me. So it's at least with me for the day. Or in the case of food, well, what can I do to plan ahead for that?
Mm-hmm.
To make sure I got my protein intake at the end of the day, I would like make dinner right between dinner and bedtime when you sometimes get peckish. If you make that like a protein shake, then you can top off your protein for the day. Something's in your stomach, it digests easily, and you'll sleep better. I've also had a little bit of success on that one, but yeah, it's just what can you do to make it simpler for you in the future? And if
Mhm.
you've already have a plan, it's decided, and you understand how it's going to do it or how it's going to work. And because in the moment, I don't like thinking about things. If I plan ahead, it's easier to let it happen the next day. So that's what I mean kind of by idiot proofing the process for yourself, especially tomorrow. So it all adds up anyway.
Yep.
And with so many little steps, it's easy for a person to feel overwhelmed or fail everything if they don't get one thing right.
Mhm.
For some people that works. 75 hard is a philosophy that's kind of like it's all or nothing and you start over.
Yeah.
And for some people, that's a great way to build up discipline. But for most of us and mere mortals like myself, I prefer others. Like, what can I reasonably handle? Like, okay, heaven forbid I have a lot of machines that need my attention and it takes 6 to 8 hours of my day just trying to get those machines up and running for my team. I don't
Mhm.
necessarily have the luxury of leaving in the middle of a workday to make sure I have the perfect meal. So, what can I do
Yep.
to make things better? I can have a water bottle. There's usually a sink around that I can refill it with. Okay, cool. Then I'm at least hydrated throughout my day. And maybe I can take myself out to a meal when it's over. What kind of
Mhm.
things can I get? Burger without a bun? Cool. Can I add in extra veggies? Put that on a like get a side salad instead, mix it all together for a giant salad with a burger patty as the meat? Cool. Or
Mhm.
chicken or fish or whatever I'm craving that day. There's ways of making things work out. And usually that giving yourself permission to make tomorrow better than it today and
Mm.
let tomorrow be its own challenge. And yeah, well, I messed today up, but these other things were still a success. I can carry that on tomorrow.
Wow.
And giving yourself permission to let that day be what it was so that tomorrow can be a better day. And the forgiveness therein, I think, has also been something I've improved on a lot.
Wow.
So
That
a
thank you
lot,
for
a lot of
sharing that.
talking there. Sorry for that.
No, no, that's all incredible things. Like I've been taking notes, and it kind of goes into our my mantra, which is just conquer the day. And like you were saying, like just really kind of controlling what you have control of for the day, and knowing that you don't have to solve all of your problems in one single day, and that there're going to be hiccups, there're going to be challenges. But it seems like throughout your experience you kind of figured out a better strategy and a better approach to not just approach just your health and lifestyle in general, but like your water, your sleep, your nutrition, and just having better, in my opinion, better impulse control around these things. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Sleep has been one of the bigger issues that I've had to get better at, and I've noticed that I've just felt a lot better with that baseline, which of course
Mm,
makes the impulse control a lot easier to handle. Life kind of sucks when you're stressed out, and if you're not sleeping, you're going to be stressed out. You're like, or at least I've noticed that my default situation is like 70% of the way into stress if you're not rested well.
mhm.
And a wicked way to cut that off, or at least a lot more on from my limited experience, is to get the rest beforehand. To give my and again, part of that is get idiot proofing the day is giving myself permission to say, that's a tomorrow job. I do need to sleep because I want to be like alert and sane for whatever that problem tomorrow is. So it's like understanding your own capacity. And
Mm,
even if the capacity is, or the measurement of that capacity is, what can I do? How can I prepare myself to be at my best self for solving this problem? And
mm,
while, yes, you can technically get something done in a given day, like you can rush over to solve a problem and you're already tired, are you going to be at your best for solving that problem?
mm,
If not, or if you're gonna want more time for solving that problem, for me, it's okay to give yourself permission to do it tomorrow or to make sure that you're at your best for solving that, especially if it's a harder thing to tackle tomorrow.
right.
One of the trends that I haven't been able to get up consistently is those combat
Mhm.
exercises or doing any kind of physical exercise, which is unfortunate, but it was secondary to making sure my sleep and water and food intake in general were stable first. And
Mhm.
for me, that was a lot more important anyway, because when I'm tired, I'm haphazardly eating or drinking or not drinking
Right.
or not eating, or I'll just wait, not eat for most of the day until I have that one meal at the end of the day. Then I fall asleep, which might be enough occasionally,
Hmm.
but it also tends to run the risk of you're missing nutrients one way or the other because you're going to go with what feels more comfortable and you're
Yep.
not setting yourself up for success. So being aware of a lot of that, and especially a lot of my habits, which are usually try and frantically look good by solving the problem now,
Mm.
giving us a little bit more leeway and grace to say, okay, well, here's my plan, and my plan is tomorrow. I'm sorry if it wasn't the answer you guys wanted, but here's my plan for tomorrow, and here's what, and be explicit with that and just let it be. I have a little bit of leeway with my job for that, which is fortunate, but it's still very much in the hospital setting. So anything
Hmm.
can feel like an emergency a little bit too quickly.
True.
And whether or not it actually is an emergency is kind of secondary to the fact that the person who's reaching out to you feels like it's an emergency.
Right.
But you don't have to let their emergency be your emergency. And if you want to solve a problem more efficiently, you can take the time to do it right. And you
Mm.
create less problems for yourself if it's done right and intentionally and methodically than you would have if you were trying to rush to the rescue. And
Wow.
there's a little bit of a give and take in there. Sometimes you can solve things quickly and it just takes 5 minutes and it's okay to do it then.
Hmm.
But for some of the bigger projects, like I don't know what went wrong here, it does take time to investigate. Give
Right.
yourself the time. And the same pattern ultimately scales into how I address my physical well being.
Hmm.
Like, what would put me in the best situation to overcome this hurdle? So,
Wow. So the basically in the impulse control front, how you manage your stress, how you manage your energy, how you manage your mental state had a profound impact on not just, your health and fitness goals, but like how you handled situations in your personal life and your job and all these other fronts. Is that correct?
yeah, part of it was a skill that I was already trying to start to utilize at work. And I just figured, well, I might as well drag that into my health and personal life front. And if can. If no can, no can. That's is the phrase. That was a phrase I picked up when I was in Hawaii for a year and a half, and I was very well fed over there. It was just a lot of rich foods, a lot of stuff, and but they were also very relaxed compared to a lot of the city folk, as it were, or the people on the mainland, where there's the American exceptionalism, independence front of it that says we have to be exceptional by working our butts off. And that
Hmm.
means utilizing every spare second of the day, work hard to gain everything. And people are burning out left and right because there is a limit. There's a very real human limit to doing your best on
Right.
junk sleep, junk food, junk
Junk
energy.
mindset.
Yeah, you people are working themselves to death, and it's in the desperation of the promise that we were given. And there is something to working harder to get better results, but not to the neglect of actually making any kind of feasible progress
Wow.
in any meaningful way. Like, and I think that was another thing I wanted to do is I wanted long-term gains that actually felt better instead of the promise of the results that the get rich quick approach usually leads to burnout faster. And you'll see the extremes of it in any kind of emotional eating or some kind of mental neuroses where people just overfixate or over concentrate on one thing or another
Right.
to the neglect of everything else. It's not a balanced approach, which is why some people are starting to acknowledge maybe we need therapy. Maybe we need to not do this. Maybe I do need to actually take more breaks in PTO, or maybe I actually do need to leave my desk and walk for a bit or
Yep.
park further away, this, that, and the other. It's like I do notice I feel better if I've actually gotten my sleep, or I feel better when I have eaten this instead of this.
Question for
So,
you.
sure.
Do you feel like that was one of the tangible results that you achieved in this experience is kind of having that almost like that holistic viewpoint of health and fitness and even weight loss in general that, like you were saying, is mostly missing in a lot of people's lives and a lot of other approaches that you might have looked at previously?
I know it's been important for me in reference to any program that I've kind of looked at. What's been kind of nice about the academy is you look at each of these things in part, but ultimately, so much of it is up to you to apply in your own life. Like it is kind of up to you to figure out your water calculation. How much do you necessarily need in a given day? And figure out how does that fluctuate depending on the weather, um, well, weather and exercise, you know.
Hmm.
And with that flexibility, it does put the onus on the person to figure out what works best for them and to put in the legwork for it, right?
Hmm.
Um, and while a lot of programs do that to the nth degree with very minimal input, I found the academy and even like the social media groups kind of useful in showing that it wasn't just you kind of learning and dealing with this, and a lot of us were going through. I wasn't. I've been slacking a little bit because of work shenanigans, and with fall, more people are going into the hospitals anyway.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's people can see what others are going through, and if they even if they don't necessarily have all of the words to express what they're dealing with and going through and learning, there's
Hmm.
a lot of learning that has to happen and a lot of self-searching that we weren't exactly taught how to do before. And some of that's its own learning process. Um, I found it helpful to kind of be reminded that not everybody is as comfortable as they might seem otherwise.
Hmm.
I'm very communicative, so I seem very confident at everything that I'm talking about. But a lot of this has been a very interesting learning experience of, well, okay, that didn't work. And oh, well, here's what I tried. But I also detailed very clearly, well, that sucked, this sucked when I did post on Facebook, which I'm sure you loved reading.
Oh,
So,
you. I think that was probably one of the best things that you've done. Like, no joke.
yeah.
Sitting down and having that kind of that hard, real conversation with yourself of like, how did things really go? Not like how I wanted it to go, but how did it really go for me? What were my intentions? What were my expectations? Did I meet these things? Did I not? What can I do to improve myself? What can I start doing? What can I stop doing? What can I continue doing? And I think
Hmm.
you did an incredible job really being focused and intentional and very, very thorough with how you analyzed your efforts and your progress and aligning that with where you want to be.
I kind of pride myself a little bit about my self analysis.
You should.
It's a very well refined skill. Part of it goes back to like dealing with anxiety and depression. You're already in your own head anyway.
Hmm.
So it those are skills that can be used flipped on their head for progress in a good
Hmm.
direction. But for some people, it does take a fair bit of therapy to get to that point where you're comfortable leveraging your internal critic in a helpful way instead of the the peanut gallery that we often end up feeling our thoughts to be. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a double-edged sword, right? You can use
Mhm.
it as a weapon to defeat the dragons, so to speak, in your mind and also out there, but you can also, hurt yourself. So the fact that you were able to take control of that through our academy and leverage that for progress is incredible. That's so awesome to hear. And I guess another question for you is like, you mentioned a lot about your experience in the academy. What were some of the challenges that you had prior to joining the academy that are no longer a challenge? I know you touched base around the sleep, the water, your impulse control, just how you approached the day and things like that. But is there any other specific challenge that was really kind of holding you back that is now no longer a challenge?
um I was very much prone to analysis paralysis, which is
Mm.
another reason I was more interested in looking to outside like feedback. What can I do better? Because I've seen a trillion of other things that could be better, and I don't necessarily have a starting point.
Mm.
Um, the academy was kind of useful for definitely narrowing some of that down because, like, just part of it is the buy-in to the academy itself that gives you an incentive. Well, try out the system. There's somebody on the other side who's going to check in on you,
Mhm.
and you're as accountable as you can be to yourself. And if you can't be accountable to yourself, you're not going to make any kind of progress.
Right.
And you've seen how reflective and analytical I kind of already am. And so as a result of that, I've already looked into a lot of different programs. I love escaping into fantasy. What can I do to make that exercise fun so that I can build myself up to everything I imagine I'm capable of, or that I'd like to be capable of?
Hmm.
In the past, I've done zombies 5K. I've finished the training at least. So I've been able to complete a 5K continuously moving.
Nice.
And I still have a lot of fun with that, but that's also turning it into a little bit more of a game.
Hmm.
But with all the knowledge that I have of games and things that are fun and storytelling, oh my gosh, the stories. It's You need a real building block to build off of. You need real life practical things to scale off of. And I had too many of those.
Mm.
So it and giving yourself permission to break that down to literally ground zero of here's what a push-up looks like and here's how you make sure that form is perfect is incredibly useful. It's like let's
Mm.
just start at level zero. And the academy is level zero for in a number of ways because people when they're thinking of exercise and fitness they focus so intently on diet or exercise,
Hmm.
usually with a preference on exercise because nobody really wants to tackle the diet as
The
much. It's
harder thing.
it's the harder thing because it's been there's already been so many things said on the topic, not to
Mhm.
mention how addictive the tasty foods are just by nature of their design.
Mhm.
Unfortunate. Once you can get out of that's probably why I became a tea snob, is just like because I've been able to get away from sodas, I enjoy the variety of flavors more, but you can't see that if you're more focused on how tasty it seems in the moment.
Mhm.
And again, going back to the ground zero, sometimes it's okay to start over, and that part of it can be hard by giving yourself permission to let it be ground zero. So that was, I guess, one of the challenges was I definitely suffered from analysis paralysis, where there were so many options. I just need the white belt. I need ground zero. I
Mhm.
need but pretending that I know absolutely nothing, what would I start with? What should I start with? What should I know? I know a lot, but knowing a lot isn't the same as applying what is useful. And that was my problem.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. That's I love again that you always end with that hook right there. Like
I try to because if I can summarize my thoughts, I notice that I tend to travel with my thoughts, and if I can loop it around to at least something that connects it back,
and
I feel like I'm not wandering as badly.
and it seems like the academy gave you that clarity and focus of not only your thoughts but like you were saying like what you can do to really make progress in the specific areas that's unique to you and what you need individually rather than as a copy and paste like blueprint for every single person, right? Because it's like the academy is built around obviously fat loss, right? And
Sure.
it's like that's the kind of direction that we want everyone to kind of go down. But just because it's a direction doesn't mean that there aren't 100 different avenues that you can kind of walk through to kind of get to your destination. And it
Mhm.
seems like for you, you place the prominent focus on specifically your mental and nutritional well-being. And I guess my next question would be like, how have you changed physically throughout this experience? You mentioned, not really focusing primarily on the combat portion, but what about the physical component?
Definitely the physical changes that I've seen. I have lost a few pounds as a result of part of this, and some of the weight has reconstituted where it is on me, which is wonderful to see. My significant other has noticed this and has commented on it, which also makes you feel really great. It's like, oh, it's not just in
Ooh.
my head. So, so there's a little bit of that. Beyond that, I tend to have more energy overall. It has been easier to fall asleep when I'm not sick
Mhm.
and being able to sleep deeply. That's also just been a metric I've been tracking throughout most of this is overall sleep, and the tracker I use attempts to calculate light rest versus deep rest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been nice to see those stabilize over the course of
Mm-hmm.
this journey, which in turn has led to my overall energy just being better. Um, I think my circadian rhythm has stabilized also as a result of that, which is marvelous.
That's a blessing.
Oh, it matters. Even though I still have a few days where I have to get up early anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I'm quicker to get back into what my normal pattern is, which is a godsend. So I have that energy. I have a fairly stable step count day to day, which is wonderful too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not physically drained at the end of every day, which leaves me able to help and handle things at home. My tool bag's decently heavy. I can heft it pretty easily, but that also might just be an ease of access. That, of course, I'm using those same muscles every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I think those are just the biggest points. That overall, I have more energy physically. My body is adapted to that with reconstituting where my muscle sits where. I look forward to getting updated measurements of my blood work and my fat
Mm-hmm.
percentage. I'm curious to see how that's changed and how much of me like traded muscle for fat. Like, I'm not sure. Like, the scale says I've dropped 5 pounds, but it's been shifted around a little bit. I'm curious to what extent.
Mm-hmm.
But that's coming up. Um, and that's kind of where I'm at. As far as physically goes, most of it's just better energy, fewer cravings, and more stable energy that I can depend on through the day. And partly with the better rest and less anxiety, it's also my head is able to utilize that energy more consistently. So when I say stable energy, it's not just on the physical side, but it's definitely on the mental side. As
Mm-hmm.
anybody who's dealt with anxiety or a lot of depression knows, that the mental energy is usually the first to go. So you can be incredibly tired even though you're physically not exhausted,
Right.
which leads into the whole "you're not working hard enough" angle that we tend to tell ourselves, whether or not it's true.
And then you create
Um,
more stress.
that's been fun. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the stress is a killer. So I'm not
Wow.
sure if that answered the question. I think it did.
A
Um,
hundred, 100%. A lot of areas physically, but ultimately you mentioned the not just the physical energy, but the mental energy. And
mhm.
that's one component of the what we call it inside the academy is the combat portion is, combat's not just the physical. It's also the everything is intertwined into one. And you kind of explain that all encompassing, like with the sleep, the energy that you have and how you don't have cravings and how that all is interconnected to your physical energy and your mental energy, as well as the nutritional energy that you receive as well. So
Mhm.
that's incredible, Aaron. That's so awesome to hear. And I guess to kind of finish up my questions here is, you know, what would you say to a friend who has shared some of the challenges that you've had prior to the academy? Would you recommend the academy to them? Why or why not?
I think I would. If there was somebody who was dealing with the whole analysis paralysis thing, who again kind of knew too much, and if they were willing to start over, here is a ground zero that I would recommend. I would recommend it as a path, like just give yourself permission to know absolutely nothing. It's okay to come in as a student, and that's
Mhm.
kind of what this system is designed for. Granted, when I was there, I also saw a few different iterations of the academy with the whole like here's this academy, but now we have a brand new version, and then there's the app that appeared halfway through. It's like, where should I track? But outside
Where
of that, having that, and even just the consistency of the follow up and is beneficial for anyone
Mhm.
who's intending to keep long term progress. If I had a friend who was willing to do that, I'd be in their corner. It's like, dude, you can talk with me too. And here's what I've seen, here's what I've dealt. I'll cheer you on with the good that you've done, even if you're feeling like crap. And also, other people in the academy probably feeling the same way, even if they don't necessarily have the words to express it.
right?
Um, I have a lot of words. I am very expressive. I know I'm weird a little bit in that regard because not everybody does. And there's a huge facet of keeping up appearances too. It's like, well, I'm not doing as good as so and so. I've always been a little bit leery of that and afraid that I don't want people to compare themselves to me because that's not fair to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not making any physical real progress with combat thing because if you see my streak, it is wonderfully empty in the combat department. But so please, I would encourage people like you don't need to compare yourself to other people. There's a reason we don't see each other's streaks necessarily. It's something that you can cheer people on with the app. That's kind of cute. With the but definitely with the Facebook groups, checking in to see that there's other people trying to chime in also
Mm-hmm.
beneficial. Like it's not just you who's struggling. That was you 2 weeks ago, or that was somebody you might be in their situation a little bit later. And but what the academy will do is it'll narrow down just very, also arguably very simple things,
Mm-hmm.
and let you focus on a path. There's a lot of options out there. There's a lot of paths to follow, and most of them are not complete in one regard or the other. Um, you don't pretend to be a dietitian, all the better, because everybody's diet is going to be unique to the chemical makeup of the person's body, right? The
Right.
person who's insulin resistant is not going to have the same diet plan as somebody who's been athletic since their childhood and they just want to refine their appearance to look more athletic or
Right.
come back from an injury, for instance. Tying in all that, not to mention the physical differences in people. Some people have never done a push up in their life. Some people are too heavy to do a safe push up. What
Right.
do they do? Um, and because of that spread, ground zero is never a bad start for anybody, I think. And so I would open this as an option. There's a little bit less role playing involved, but this is how you would build your avatar in a very physical sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to supplement that with some kind of story like fun, I would happily fill in that blank for my friend, but that's neither here nor there. There's also other supplemental stuff that Dare puts out. They have role playing programs and a lot of free resources that can just be like supplemental to anybody's given day. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, you only have so many minutes. Here's a routine you can do. Awesome. But despite the abundance of resources, if you just want to like follow one path or program, the academy is pretty darn well rounded for that. I think with the different facets of being a warrior, you have your intellect, you have your alchemy, you have ultimately the combat side of it,
Mm-hmm.
and you extrapolate it out to the real world. Yes, all of those parts are insanely important,
Mm-hmm.
and it gives you a roadmap to follow those parts, which you can then take out elsewhere if you want to continue in your regard in pursuit of your physical best, whether it's just getting down to a normal resting heart rate or actually being able to run a 5K or actually completing a Spartan run or
Right.
somebody else's one of any number of goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend it, but I would also add in with the caveats like here's the kind of things that they're going to follow up on,
Mm-hmm.
and that's great. You can be as honest and open as you care to be, but bear in mind that lying is not going to help you. All that said, it's there as a resource for literally ground zero that does take into consideration multiple aspects of you, and that will also mean your mind. Your your emotional well-being is tied into what you think about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's the part of the intellect aspect, and how well do you know yourself and your own habits. Very
Mm-hmm.
useful, I thought. Excellent aspect of the academy that I thought doesn't get touched on enough. Like a lot of people are raw motivation, but it's
Mm-hmm.
there's more to that, right?
Much more.
And definitely with the alchemy side of it is diet. Everybody knows about diet. Well, yeah, you have to just you cut out sugar. You have to do this, that, and the other. Yes and no. What do you need? What makes you feel the best? And here are some things that we can try out. Part of it's a little bit of trial and error, and also being honest with yourself and being willing to let go of the tasties,
Mm-hmm.
which can be hard. But it's definitely an important aspect, and there's a reason it's a pillar. So for sure, the combat aspect, there's a reason I think it's like secondary to alchemy because your overall well-being is tied into what you put into your body, which then gives you the strength and energy to do with the body and to
Mm-hmm.
put out that strength. And because it has all of those facets and basics and lets it build on each other in going out, I think was very useful. So it would be something I would recommend to someone who's an absolute beginner.
Mhm.
or someone who is kind of stuck on what do I try. It's like this is not a bad start to try. Um, and if you're willing to put in the investment to yourself for yourself, part of this, the financial pay-in,
Mhm.
you also do get access to other people who are kind of like you, but people who have gotten past where you've gotten past. And you do get more access to those kind of resources that you can then expand on in the future. If you're interested in a topic, there are books in abundance on those topics. And some were listed in the academy, and others people probably just need to ask.
Right.
And again, I know more than I should, but asking around in the academy or even asking on like the Facebook page or even reaching out to you or oh yeah, she was a wonderful resource too. There's you're not alone.
Mhm.
And I think that's another kind of hint in the academy is that they're all going through this path together. And it isn't just you. Whatever you think is wrong about you, it's not just you. There's a reason this all sucks for all of us. It's not you. It's a human thing. So yeah, ultimately I think I would recommend the academy for it because it does cover a lot of important basics
Mhm.
that my friend and I can then build on together. So that's kind of where I think on that one.
Wow. You touched so many awesome points in there. Like I think the big part is that the two things for me. It was from what I'm hearing, the resources, having those resources available to take you from a complete beginner to fine tuning the specific areas that you need the most yourself individually, and then also having the community and the support was something that you would absolutely recommend to someone who's thinking about the academy, as far as like you were saying, them not being alone, right? And one of the biggest reasons why people fail is because of lack of support. They don't have
Yeah.
anyone to go
And I know
to.
I'm a shy introvert anyway, so I tend to recoil at the idea of talking to people. But that said, what if you had an insight that somebody else could benefit off of? Okay, then I will be as analytical as possible so no one has any ambiguity about what kind of struggle I had and what my next plan is as a result of that. That was how I compensated for that a little bit is you might know something that somebody else needed to hear.
Mhm.
Um, and being helpful for some reason is easier than asking for help. It's odd that way. And yeah, especially with the how isolationist a lot of people are,
Mhm.
especially those who tend to gravitate toward gaming and social media. Our entertainment tends to also be a little bit removed from people. More worse off for it, I suspect. But
Mhm.
it's kind of where we are right now, especially post COVID and how everybody handled that. It's just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Wow.
yeah, that's fair.
I guess the last question is there anything that you'd like to add as a, I guess, the cherry on top of your experience through the academy?
I've been very grateful that to have those building blocks as much as the academies kind of changed their formats mid way through that threw me off a little bit. That said, the basic core is the same. I tried to get caught up on the news side of it, but it's like I technically already did this. Am I just wasting that? That was mostly just a personal thing. It's like maybe I didn't have to do this. I keep my resources downloaded and handy. That's helpful. Um,
Yeah.
but let's see. Cherry on top experiences. I got caught on a side. Can you mind repeating that question for me? I think I got lost.
Yeah, just what are your final thoughts, I guess, on your experience through the academy?
I found the breaking down of what you can do in any given day very, very helpful.
Mhm.
Um, that with the apps like daily tasks, very helpful. We'd use Norton for a while. Before that, again, similarly, it's just kind of encouraging the general tract as opposed to the hyper rigidity
Mhm.
that tends to come up with you all or nothing. Uh, Once you're allowing yourself to accept your average improvement as opposed to the every day has to be perfect. It lets you progress a little bit more cleanly. And and having that, even the general accountability of the tick marks and check boxes was helpful. I could look on it and also reflect on my day. How far have I gotten in that given day? Before noon, what did I do yesterday? What can I do for the rest of my day? How can I make it tomorrow better for me? How can I idiot proof tomorrow? And it served as a touch point for most of what I said before and most of my planning for what was yet to come, I believe. So I found those things helpful. Um, Social media is helpful, even though I am very much a flake when it comes to uh, posts. um, I could
You
fix that.
you did a
Um,
great job stepping out of your comfort zone.
I
That's
tried.
something I want to add is that you came in, kind of almost openly and transparently saying like, this is something I normally don't feel comfortable doing or don't do generally, and you challenge yourself in a lot of different ways, and you stepped out of your comfort zone a lot of ways, and you took action, and you were open-minded, and you took full advantage of the resources and the support and the community that you had in front of you, to really pinpoint those specific areas that you found to be most helpful from what I'm hearing.
That's fair. That's fair. Um, I like to think that I was able to balance a lot of the resources that were offered into finding out what I needed to do more of. Now,
Mhm.
granted, usually at the back of my mind, you have a suspicion, but you don't want to acknowledge it. And being able to more clearly define out, well, this would actually help me, this and this. If I can focus on these things, let's see how I feel afterward, and then scale off of that, which ultimately is challenging yourself, right? What
Mhm.
can I do better? Be more personable. Eat better.
Mhm.
Okay, well, how about fewer sweets in a week? Okay, I can try that. How much is fewer?
True,
And
right?
then you do have to break it down further, but that's your independent journey, right? So,
Mhm.
and the more honest you are with yourself, and the more you can like actively track and record, especially with like in addition to other apps that actually track stuff like that, like calories day to day. I found
Mhm.
a chronometer that was recommended to me by another source.
Mhm.
It allows you to track your calories in and out, and it lets you put in exercises or whatnot. It also lets you put in um, various biometrics like your weight or how much you slept if you wanted to start tracking those also, which are kind of cool. So I've been utilizing that and making use of those resources as an informative tool has been
Mhm.
beneficial, I think. Um, yeah, and in addition to what the Academy has ultimately showcased as the breadth of resources, allows the beginner or someone choosing to be a beginner
Mhm.
a path to experiment and navigate what healthy means for them. And I found that helpful. I found a lot of that helpful. So I think that's what I would say in summary for that.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing, Aaron.